Browns undefeated in the preseason. Dillon Gabriel coming off his best game in the preseason. And, of course, Shador also played in that game. To talk everything Cleveland Browns football, we head out to the fan hotline here. Browns analyst Nathan Zegura with us. Hey, Nathan, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Very, very good here. Who had a better game on Saturday, Aiden Huntington or Dillon Gabriel?
Oh, that's a good one. Good question right there. I would say Aiden Huntington, because Dillon Gabriel knew he was making this team. Now, he played very well, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but Aiden Huntington is awesome. So I got a chance to interview him on the Kevin Stefanski show last week, and I would urge anybody to go check that out, seek that out, find the interviews, about 13 minutes. By the end of it, I'm not kidding, I had like tears in my eyes. I love that kid. He wants it so bad. He works so hard. He is so humble. And to get to see him go out there and dominate the way he did, I joked at one point during the broadcast, they're going to have to rename it Aiden Huntington Bankfield. He was, so good, so fun. We got to see him play fullback on the opening snap. He's a special teams demon. He can rush the passer. He's a guy who, has played defensive end, defensive tackle. He used to play linebacker, moves like it. It's just, it's awesome. And now he's going to make an NFL team and all that comes along with it. This was a guy who told me that he was so excited that, he could, now that he's been in the NFL before he made the team, obviously, that he could splurge and get a Caesar salad when he goes to his favorite Italian restaurant. So this kid is humble, hungry, some kid, awesome story. And then I've never seen in all my time with the Browns that, it's announced in the post-game press conference by the head coach that an undrafted free agent has made the 53-man roster. And when Kevin did that for him, I thought that was just the icing on the cake. Just very cool story, very cool day. And I think he's going to be a real contributor for the Browns this year.
Yeah, it was a great story. And before we get to some of the quarterbacks and who look good and everything else around that, I did want to ask you a little bit about Schlesinger in this game, because once again I thought he was the best player on defense, and he just continues to show up game in, game out, practice every single time you see him. He just has a nose for the football, Nathan.
There's no doubt, and I think that the Browns were optimistic when they drafted him where they drafted him, that he was going to be a really good pro, and obviously that he was going to be able to have some time with Jordan Hicks here. Hicks retires, surprises everybody. He's thrust into it, and he's even been better than they've expected. And he does everything. He's great against the run, just has a natural feel for that. Great tackler, obviously led the nation in solo tackles a year ago at UCLA. He's very comfortable in coverage and getting more and more comfortable there. And then he's an excellent blitzer. Now, of course, it's very easy to blitz from the A-gap when they just don't block you. But he also is going to be used in a lot of these blitz packages for the Browns because he is just such a good athlete. He's got great size. He's been an absolute stud. So you're exactly right. He has been excellent. They are very excited about him. And he's a guy that feels to me like if it goes kind of the way that it certainly appears it's going to go with him, and that is that he's very good and, a guy who could be, in one of the elite at his position, that he is going to be one of the favorites in this town for a long time because he just plays physically. He pops every time he's on the field.
Nathan Zegura, Browns analyst on the fan hotline. All right, what'd you think of Dillon Gabriel's performance on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought he looked really good. And I think that, what you always want to see coming out of the first one is there was a lot of good in the first one, right? Completed 72% of his passes, operated everything efficiently, but he had the 2 turnovers. And so what you wanted to see was, okay, can we learn from that? Can we evolve from that? And we did. I thought we saw in a couple of cases where he would just throw the ball away. I thought that was good. Don't try to force something that isn't there. That's how you end up getting those turnovers. And obviously was everywhere where he needed to be with his footwork on the run plays, especially those from under center. So I thought very impressive. Look, he clearly understands. He's played a lot of college football, 63 starts, more than anybody. He understands defense, and he understands where to go with the ball, and he understands what he's being asked to do in this offense. His time to throw, for the entire preseason was 2.67 seconds. His time to throw from a clean pocket was about 2.2. So he sees it. He rips it. I thought he did a good job going through his progressions, and I thought on the 2-minute drill in particular, he goes 9 for 11. I think they go 86 yards in just over a minute. And the third down ball to Jamari Thrash on that corner route was as good as you'll get. That's just perfect ball placement, great recognition, great throw, all of it, and finds Gage Larvidan for the touchdown at the end. But poised, efficient, and one of the concerns with his height would be the middle of the field. There still are times where, maybe he misses a little higher than I would like. and that's got to be cleaned up. But I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was 13 of 17 for 157 yards on throws over the middle of the field between 0 and 20 yards in the air. And if you can live there at a quarterback in the NFL, your height is certainly not an issue, and I thought he did a very good job.
Yeah, we know who Joe is, obviously, Nathan. He's been in the league for a million years. But how encouraging is it that he looked as solid as he did and still looks like, Father Time hasn't come for him yet.
Joe Flacco, 9 of 10, 71 yards and a touchdown, stands tall in the pocket, has the ability, the one pass to David Njoku, he's like drifting back to his left and just flicks it out there to his right and makes a beautiful throw. Yeah, he looked good. The touchdown ball to Fannin, great recognition, great ball, good catch by Fannin, who I think is another one of the exciting guys in this rookie class. I think we really have a chance. This could be, and you need it to be, let's be perfectly honest about it, somewhat of a transformative rookie class, and it certainly looks like it has some of that potential with Fannin and Sampson and Schlesinger and Mason Graham, and now we're going to add Isaiah Bond to that mix, and hopefully Judkins is going to be here sooner rather than later. But, yeah, Joe Flacco, he's going to operate this offense. He's going to hit some of those big plays. We haven't really shown any of our shot plays in the preseason, which I think is fun because we're going to have some of those for Cincinnati ready to go.
Nathan, we have yet to talk about Shedor's performance. I'm not going to bring back the stat line, but what do you chalk up Shedor's performance on Saturday to?
Just like we talked about last time, all the things, that we really liked about his Colorado tape that we saw against Carolina, the accuracy, the poise in the pocket, the ability to make plays in and out of structure. This game, unfortunately, we saw a lot of things that were the concerns at Colorado, right? Slow in his process, drifting back, putting the football in just his left hand where he's not a threat to throw the ball anymore. Not seeing the field quickly, not being quick and decisive with the football. And his time to throw for the whole preseason was 3.96 seconds. That was the longest in the league by half a second. So that's an outlier. And he's not an athlete on the level of being able to run around and make all those plays with his legs. So he's got to see it and be a distributor and understand what he's looking at and be confident in that. And I think in this one, he was much more concerned about the pressure that was coming. And even though, 60% of that line was the same for Gabriel as it was for Shedeur, you've got to be there. And people say, there wasn't quick game. There was plenty of quick game for him. In fact, when you go empty, there were multiple quick game routes in that one. And I was talking about he's got to speed up his process and be more decisive. There were checkdowns available. There weren't as many plays open down the field as we would have liked to have seen, but it was just one where I don't think he saw it. I don't think he was trusting his line. I don't think he was trusting what he was seeing. So he's holding the ball and getting into those bad. He can't drift back and take 23-yard sacks and 5 sacks and 11 dropbacks. Obviously not good. And he's going to work on it. And as we said all along, he's a work in progress. He's a guy who has a big, big learning curve and through no fault of his own was not asked to do a lot of the things at Colorado that you must do in the NFL. And so when he's comfortable and good and locked in, as we saw in terms of what he's seeing, as we saw in Carolina, he can be very good. And I still think he has a very high ceiling, but this was a growing pains game. And some of the bad habits, when you get under that duress and you don't know what you're seeing, you revert to those. And I think that's really as simple as that. This is a guy who also, to be very fair to him, doesn't get reps in Philly because he has the oblique injury. And then this week was much more of a regular week of practice. And so there aren't going to be many reps to go for the fourth quarterback in that scenario. So I think, that's another thing. He got a lot of reps in Carolina going into that one, and I think was more comfortable with what was going on. And then this one didn't have a lot of reps, and I think it showed.
Yeah, you mentioned fourth quarterback. That would assume then that Kenny Pickett does stay on the roster. Do you think he'll stay on the roster by 4 o'clock tomorrow, or is that something that the Browns should be looking at maybe dealing?
I think that he will be on the roster unless something happens. Everybody's got a price at the end of the day. If somebody makes the Browns an offer they can't refuse, but they really like Kenny Pickett. And I've told you guys, all along, if Kenny Pickett doesn't get hurt, there's a good chance Kenny Pickett's the week 1 starter. So they've liked what they've seen from him. I also think that they would feel more comfortable. And Dillon Gabriel, I think, showed you all you need to see to say, okay, yeah, this guy could be the backup. But when you're talking about a 6-game stretch to open the season against the Bengals and the Ravens and the Packers and the Lions and the Vikings and the Steelers, teams who last year were combined 40 games over 500, it's probably not where you want a rookie to jump in there. And so I think Kenny Pickett would have an opportunity if, Flacco were to be injured early in the season to be able to step in. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. I do think, though, we will see, if this season, depending on where it is from a record standpoint, I do think there's a chance you'll see Dillon Gabriel, get some meaningful starts because I think that he's earned it, and he just looked very in command. And in this type of a system, if you can be in command, and I'll give you 2 extremes, a first-round pick and a seventh-round pick, Tua Tagovailoa, and Brock Purdy, they both win by being rhythmic throwers, understanding the rhythm of the offense, and being anticipatory and accurate. And that's how Dillon Gabriel is going to win. So there are examples of quarterbacks being very successful in this style of an offense who do those things at a high level. I think Dillon Gabriel showing that he does those things at a high level. And that will just have to see, eventually when it's real competition.
Nathan, we know there's going to be a natural roster churn over the next couple of weeks, not just for the Browns, but for the entire NFL. What are the positions we could see the Browns trying to upgrade via waiver and trade over the next week and a half?
I think cornerback is the one that jumps out immediately. I think that we definitely need to bring some people into that room. I would say linebacker, just because of the injuries, you're a little thin. I think they really like their 5 linebackers, even with Mookie Watson out. But, Mahmoud's been banged up. Winston Reed's currently banged up. Ethan Mascarenas-Arnold's done a great job, leading tackler in the preseason. Maybe he ends up, making this team because of some of those injuries. But I'd say linebackers, when you would look at, we're loaded on the defensive line. Maybe there's a receiver that they find interesting, but I think by adding Isaiah Bond to the mix, you're pretty good there. And Jabari Thrash has emerged and started to look really good. And the offensive line. I think you can always have, specifically tackle. I think you always are looking for help at that position.
Nathan, do we have a kicker controversy on our hands?
I don't know if we have a controversy, but I think we have a real decision that has to be made, and probably not an easy decision because, Dustin Hopkins missed 2 extra points in the preseason. He may have missed a third that was counted as good, and they're not going to review those, obviously in the preseason. And Andre Schmidt, Lou Groza winner at Syracuse, has been money. And I thought that, one of the things that people aren't talking about at the end of that game is, number one, Kevin Stefanski loves Snoop Huntley. He was the captain for all 3 preseason games. He wanted to get him some work in this game and hopefully give him some more film to latch on somewhere else. And I think that, with the way that Shador was playing, unfortunately, they really wanted a field goal at the end of that game. And I think Snoop Huntley obviously got them down there, a lot of penalties, and thank you for that for the Rams. But I think Kevin Stefanski wanted to see a field goal because that scenario, yes, it's to win the game, but for Andre Schmidt, that's also what a pressure kick that is, right? Because if you miss it, you have no chance. And he drilled it right down the middle. I mean, not even an inch of deviation from the center of those uprights. And so I thought that was good. And yeah, I think that has to be a conversation. Financially, it would be a big hit to take D-Hop and to cut him. But, this is a team that I think is going to be in close games a lot similar to 23. And you need to be able to count on your kicker. And he was magical in 23. Gosh, was he so good that year. But last year was a real struggle. And unfortunately, you'd have loved to see just a flawless preseason. You did not see that. In fact, a couple of his kicks that went in just snuck in. And even yesterday on Saturday, his short field goal kind of was veering well to the right. So, yeah, I think there's a tough decision that needs to be made there.
Nathan, great stuff, buddy. Appreciate you. And don't look now. The regular season's right around the corner.
Thank goodness. Here we go. Let's do it.
Excellent. Nathan Zegura there, Browns analyst on the Fan Hotline.